All right, good evening. It is 7:30 on February 28th, and for our regular village board meeting, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Davis.
Present.
Trustee Blankensop.
Here.
Trustee Bolfus.
Here.
Trustee Taglia.
Here.
Trustee Case.
Here.
Trustee Bullwinkle. Here. President Cullerton.
Here, and if we could all please stand for the pledge. And Mr. Case, would you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could all remain standing, Trustee Taglia, please lead us in a prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, will thou be pleased to grant that this meeting, thus begun in order, be conducted in peace and closed in harmony. Amen.
Amen. All right, our first item on the agenda is public participation on agenda items. So if there is anyone from the public who would like to participate on an agenda item, that would be our first page of business, which would be items 1 through 11. Now would be the time to speak. Please come up, state your name, and keep it to about 3 minutes. If you have something that you would like to speak about on the committee of the whole portion, that opportunity will be given to you at each individual point. So, is there anyone to speak on the agenda items? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankensop.
make a motion to approve the agenda.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia.
second the motion.
Questions or comments from the board? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Blankensop.
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
President Cullerton.
Yes. Item 3, proclamation designating March 7th through 12th, 2011 as Salt Creek School District 48 Week. For those of you who don't know, School District 48 is celebrating its 175th anniversary. So pretty big milestone. Whereas Salt Creek School District 48, first schoolhouse was on the corner of Butterfield Road and Roosevelt Road. It held its first class there 175 years ago in 1836. And whereas Salt Creek District 48 is celebrating their 175th anniversary, and whereas Salt Creek School District 48 grew from a one-room schoolhouse heated by a log stove in the middle of the room to 3 schools, John E. Albright Middle School, Stella Mae Swartz School, and Salt Creek Primary School. And whereas Salt Creek School District 48 grew from education 10 students to serving students in 4 communities, Elmhurst, Oakbrook Terrace, and Villa Park. And whereas Salt Creek School District 48 is celebrating its 175th anniversary on Saturday, March 12th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at John E. Albright Middle School. Therefore, I, Thomas Cullerton, Village President of Villa Park, do hereby proclaim the week of March 7th, 2011 as Salt Creek School District 48 Week in the Village of Villa Park, Illinois. Dated February 28th, 2011. By the way, congratulations. I'm sure back in the day it looked like the show Little House on the Prairie. All right, item 4 is the consent agenda. A, approved minutes of February 14th, 2011 Village Board meeting. B, approved minutes of February 21st, 2011 Budget Workshop meeting. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis.
make a motion for the consent agenda.
Could I have a second, please?
President,
Trustee Bullwinkle.
second the motion.
Questions or comments from the board? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Blankensop.
Yes.
President Cullerton.
Yes. Item 5, approved bill listing. Approved bill listing dated February 28th, 2011, the amount of $1,592,365.14. Can I have a motion to approve the bill listing?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis?
make a motion to approve the bill listing.
Could I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bullfus?
second.
Questions or comments from the board on the bill listing? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
President Colleton.
Yes. Item 6, second reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 1 and 16 of the Municipal Code. Reason fines. Can I have a motion for the second reading?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolfus.
motion for a second reading.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis.
second the motion.
Questions or comments from the board? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
President Colleton.
Yes. Item 7, second reading of an ordinance granting two-lot single-family residential subdivision with variations at 619 North Ardmore Avenue. Nick Guskus, petitioner. Hope I got that right. Can I have a motion for the second reading?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolfus.
motion for the second reading.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia.
Second.
Questions or comments from the board? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
President Colleton.
Yes. Item 8, first reading of an ordinance approving PZ-08-0014, various text amendments to Appendix C Basic Zoning Ordinance relative to title loans, payday loans, pawn shops, and currency exchanges, and petition PZ-10-0010, various text amendments to Appendix C Basic Zoning Ordinance relative to cash for gold stores, Village of Villa Park petitioner. Can I have a motion for the first reading?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolfus.
make a motion for the first reading.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis.
second.
Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis.
I would like to see if we can make an amendment to remove North Park Mall from the PUD on this particular instance.
I imagine we would want our community development director.
Shubra.
Here she comes. Should we just call that the bullpen over there as everybody waits? All right. Trustee Davis has asked if we can remove North Park Mall as one of the PUD items and still be within compliance.
However you want to modify the ordinance, this is just the first reading. So basically, it would be that all of the uses would then just be limited to shopping centers, Villa Oaks, and the courtyard. If that's how the board wants to proceed, then this is the time to do it.
All right. Questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship.
I would just say that I think this ordinance is not the right thing, and I'll be voting no. And I know it's difficult. It's, which do you pick? It's sort of the lesser of the two evils. I personally am against these types of stores for our town. I don't think it promotes the right thing for our town. It's not part of the comprehensive plan. I don't believe that it falls into the categories of the types of retail stores and types of stores we want in town. Secondly, if we go to the map over there and look at it, the pink is all the M1 and the blue is the PUDs. The PUDs, in my opinion, are pinnacle shopping centers, and I frankly don't believe that these style of outlets, stores, pawn shops, whatever you want to call them, have a place in those malls. That's our silver platter of types of mall environments. I do believe that we should be trying to hide these stores from public viewing, and there's only one area of that map that has really a residential area, and it's a 2-block area, and that's Addison Road. So, in my opinion, though there's more pink, most of the stores will wind up out of sight, out of mind. If someone wants to go to them, they can seek them out, but they're not going to have retail appeal in traffic-hit areas. I'm against them. I would just encourage the board to, consider voting this down. I don't think there's any one right answer here, but Planning and Zoning has been working on what to do with this for 2 years, and it's unfortunate, but a couple of these types of stores have gotten through before we've had the chance to put this in place, and I think M1 is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Blankenship. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President?
Trustee, well, let's let the attorney. You want to let the attorney
I
go
was just
first?
going to say, Trustee Davis made a motion, but it never got seconded, just so you're aware of that.
Oh, okay.
You can have time yet.
We got time. We'll see.
I just want to point out, I think with allowing them only in the PUDs, it puts on another level of enforcement, and with some enforcement that the village does not really have the authority to do. If we go with Trustee Davis's suggestion and limit it to the 2 PUDs or shopping centers on the south side of town, which, especially the courtyard, is a rather high end, I don't see them allowing any one of those stores in there, a cash for gold or a payday loan store. And the Villa Oaks Center, it's way off the street, and they really don't have that many small units in there where they could rent a little piece out that would hold just a currency exchange or a cash for gold. They have bigger pieces there, so I don't see him wanting to break up his property there for that. So, I just like the idea of another layer of enforcement that we wouldn't have to do. The mall owners would enforce it and regulate the signage and the hours and who can be in there where the village can't do any of those. So.
Thank you, Trustee Bulthus. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President?
Trustee Bullwinkle, sorry.
It's okay. When we go back and look at the pink areas, the M1, the original idea when that was brought forward was that area is perceived to be not as desirable, a little more inconvenient, off the beaten path, and that to me makes more sense than putting it in 1, 2, or 3 of our major shopping districts. I drove through Villa Oaks recently, and there's quite a few empty storefronts in Villa Oaks right now. Some of them are larger spaces, but they can be subdivided. A lot of things can happen that we don't have control over. The other thing, too, is, I mentioned this last week, mall ownership can change hands at any time. And I just think we're probably giving a little too much control over to the mall owners. And I think, when we look at our grand plan for this town, we need to start really thinking about what makes sense to put in these spaces. All because it fits doesn't mean that it fits in that particular space. And I think we need to start kind of changing the way we think about how we go about shopping around, so to speak, for the types of businesses that we have. I understand we can't necessarily control these businesses, but we can certainly maybe make it a little more difficult for them to come into town. So that's pretty much how I feel. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Davis?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm so much against these, and I went on a rant and a rave, got on my soapbox the last meeting about this. I haven't changed. I still think it's all Cook County trash. But looking at that map, at those pink sites, we're subjecting to ourselves to more than just one store. And especially if we go with mine and limit it to the 2 PUDs down there on the south side, you're lucky if you're going to get one in those places, one each, if that. But on the other side of the fence, you look at the M1 district, they can put a ton of these things in our town and flood these areas, and there's probably well over a mile's worth of streets that we can put in the M1 areas. So that's my thought process, because we can't say no, apparently. So I want to try and limit it down to as few as possible. That's why I said the 2 PUDs on Roosevelt Road. And I have a good suspicion that those folks aren't going to allow it in their properties, which takes the burden off of the village. Make sense?
Thank you, Trustee Davis. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship?
just one last comment. I don't believe putting them in the PUD adds an extra layer of protection. I think it actually, we go backwards in losing protection, losing control, and then you look at past history and working with a couple of the PUDs, and I don't know if they're engaged in their developments, quite frankly, because we've had pretty tough experiences with two of them. And then secondly, from a pure economics standpoint, just because someone sets up shop doesn't mean they're going to be viable. They're going to either have to buy property or pay for rent. And like Deb said, out of sight, out of mind. It's going to be hard to get foot traffic off the street. And my guess is if they're in the M1 districts, unless they have one heck of a marketing campaign, they're going to go belly up. And I think that that's the ultimate equalizer is that approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Blankenship. Any other questions or comments from the board?
President Colors.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
One more thought in terms of the pink area. It was mentioned in our last meeting that some of those areas are on Addison Road where there might be some additional exposure. Is there any way, if that ends up being a problem, is there any way we can rezone those areas so they're not M1 if that is in fact an M1 district?
If the uses there are already industrial,
But there was
then-
it was mentioned that Addison Road, and there was another area too mentioned at our last meeting where it's M1, but it's kind of close to the shopping areas, I guess. So could we conceivably rezone those areas?
if we rezone them, but
Those
the existing
particular areas.
uses in there are already industrial, then we'll be making all of them non-conforming.
So we can't take, if there happens to be a section that's already in a shopping district or whatever would be perceived a shopping district.
Not a shopping district per se, but
Like on
those
Addison,
are all,
like
correct.
that faces
Those are
Addison Road, for example.
those are all light industrial uses. So if they are already light industrial uses, if you rezone them to commercial, then you're rendering all of them non-conforming.
Oh, okay. Well, I just know that there were some concerns about a couple specific places that face, busy streets or whatever. So they're not necessarily off the beaten path, but the majority of that is, so.
But those are still light
Okay.
industrial uses, so
Okay. That's it.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bullfus?
was Trustee Davis going to make a motion, or?
I think he did. I was getting back. I was just going to finish up with comments,
I
and then
didn't know
we'll
if that
go.
was actually a motion.
I was going to finish up with comments, and then we'll go with a. If somebody wants to second his motion to only allow in the two PUDs on the south end of town on Roosevelt. So that is we would be adjusting the original motion, correct, which is first reading, to change to the locations to be the two south. If there is, well, what do we have to do? Take a roll call on the first motion?
There's no second yet.
Okay.
No. If there's a motion to amend, you wait and see if there's a second, then you have a vote on the amendment first, and then
Okay.
the original as amended if the amendment passes.
All right. So do we have a motion on the amendment?
You want to repeat that?
All right. You made a motion to change from all three of those PUDs to just the bottom two PUDs?
Yes, sir.
So I need a second on your amendment. If we have a second on Trustee Davis's amendment to allow in the bottom two, essentially looking at the map, in the bottom two PUDs as opposed to all three PUDs. Do we have a second for that amendment? And if we don't have a second for that, then we will be voting on allowing it all three. All right, no second for that amendment, so we will go to a roll call vote on the first reading of the two ordinances as they stand, allowing it all three. Can we have a roll call? Any other questions or comments?
Yes, President.
Trustee Case.
Is there a time frame where we can tell these people to stay open till, or like, we can't serve liquor after 2 o'clock in Villa Park? We tell these places to shut down after 6 o'clock or?
There are some reasonable regulations that you can make on certain businesses, such as the cash for gold stores, which could be considered secondhand goods stores. The municipal code does allow non-home rule units to regulate secondhand goods stores. The other stores, I do not believe that there's any authority in the state statute to enact regulations on those. We have discussed before about possible regulations for secondhand goods stores.
So could they stay open 24 hours? If they were at M1s? If they were anywhere, could they stay open 24 hours?
Yes.
So, but will the mall owners have any say-so on what?
Well, sure, they can put in their leases hours of operations. That's what the village can't do.
Okay.
Mr. President, I just wanted to point out, Mr. President, this is first reading, so we get another shot at this.
Correct. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Let's do a roll call vote for the first reading.
Trustee Davis?
No.
Trustee Blankenship?
No.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
No.
Trustee Case?
No.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
No.
President Cullerton?
All right. The motion does not pass. So I guess that means as it stands right now, what does it stand at?
We need a new motion.
There probably needs to be another motion to
Where do we stand?
Right. So if you don't take any action, it's going to stay the way it is now.
Right.
So you might want to consider another motion to amend this.
To amend it to an M1?
Yeah, but can we amend it after we've already finished and it's canceled out? Are we allowed to take action on that? Or should we have made the motion before we took the vote?
If somebody has an alternate motion, you can move to reconsider the item, have a vote on that, and then make an alternate motion.
I would suggest somebody move to reconsider so that we get something on the books here tonight so that tomorrow we don't have 7 applications in for anywhere in the village. Can somebody make a motion to reconsider?
President?
Trustee Taglia?
I'll move to allow these businesses with these restrictions in M1 district.
Just do a motion to reconsider.
Reconsider.
Who's allowed to make that motion to reconsider?
Anyone on the prevailing side?
So Trustee Taglia, you are the prevailing side. You are making a motion to reconsider.
Yes, sir.
Could I have a second to reconsider?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship?
I'll make a second to reconsider and then modify.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to reconsider, and Trustee Blankenship would like, as part of the motion, to modify. So now allow the modification. Is that correct or no?
No, first, you should just reconsider the item, then make the motion as to how you want it to be.
I would like
Do I
to
have
make
to-
a motion to reconsider.
Okay, so we've got a first and a second to reconsider. I've got to take a vote on that, correct?
Correct.
All right, can I have a roll call on the reconsider?
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Hagelin? Oh, I'm sorry. My old page. Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
All right, we are in the mode of reconsidering. So now I need a motion on how to move forward with essentially our pawn shop law.
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship.
I'd like to make a motion to modify this ordinance recommendation to be placed specifically for the listed types of businesses to be placed specifically or allowed to be to set up business in M1 districts in the Village of Villa Park
Only.
only.
Is that all we need? Okay. Can I have a second?
Mr. President?
Trustee Taglia?
I have a question as far as the restrictions in Section 3 of the ordinance. Would those still be in effect for the modified zoning.
Well, I need a second first, Trustee Taglia, on his modified
Then you
motion.
can ask.
I'll
Correct.
second the motion.
All right, so we've got a second. All right, now, questions or comments? Trustee Taglia.
Mr. President, the restrictions in Section 3, would those still apply to the change in the zoning?
Well, no, we'd be obviously taking out.
I mean, we've changed out the PUD with
Obviously,
the
be taking
M1.
out the PUD for the M1. The uses would have to remain the same, I would imagine, correct? The uses in Section 3 would have to remain the same?
Item
So we would
20.
have to, are you looking at C,
I'm looking at Section 3, Item 20.
right?
Only one of these uses set forth in Section 20.b shall be permitted.
Well, but that was only one in each of the PUDs. If we're allowing them in M1, I don't think we can restrict how many go into an M1.
Is that true? We can't.
We can't restrict the amount of businesses in, at least that's my understanding. Is that correct?
At this point, there isn't any basis to restrict the distances without some kind of study or something to show some kind of negative secondary effects, like for adult uses. There wouldn't be any basis to restrict the number of them in M1 and avoid a federal,
Well, this would
and
be a
avoid a
first.
federal lawsuit.
This would be a first reading. Can we find out that information on how much we can restrict in each?
The way it stands right now, and the information that came through Plan Commission, there's not enough reasonable basis to restrict the number of them in M1.
Can we
would
restrict how
require-
many feet from each other?
No, that's what I'm saying, that there isn't sufficient documentation in the record to support that. It would take some kind of a study showing what kind of effects these type of businesses have, and I'm not aware of any community that has such a study. The only types of businesses and uses that I've seen restrictions on distances have been either adult uses where there have been studies conducted on the negative secondary effects on adjoining properties for those businesses, and other distance requirements have generally related to things that are special uses, which you have the right to make it a special use in a certain area, which this is not. That's not the case here. This is restricting a permitted use. So at this point in time, you need to have some kind of restriction moving forward. If it becomes a problem with density of these businesses, you might be able to look at further restricting the use, but at this point in time, you don't have enough to do that. You could be inviting litigation, and I don't think you want to continue to allow these to be potentially unrestricted in their locations.
Thank you. Schubert?
Question actually for the attorney. At this point, can there be consideration for these uses to be special uses in M1 rather than permitted? Or we
Well,
need to
I don't
go
know the
through-
basis for doing that, because then you would have no place where they would be a permitted use. And I'm not sure that there's been established a basis for that at this point in time.
I do have a question. Since we are at a first reading,
You know, certainly we can look into it.
right, but since we are at a first reading, nobody can still open shop while we're in all this reading, while we're still doing all these laws, correct? While we're still setting this up, nobody can set up shop. Is that correct? Because we still don't have where they can set up shop.
Right. That's open.
Are you sure?
We did receive a letter from an attorney the other day asserting that they had a right to be in a C2 location, and that this was filed in November, so the 3 months has passed, and that they're entitled to a permit. Our position is that they aren't specifically listed as a permitted use in C2, so they aren't entitled to open up shop. But it's an open question, and we need to get it resolved and get something on the books.
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship?
would it be helpful if we made this a first and final and then do some research on the footage question, the density question?
It wasn't on the agenda as first and final, so I don't think you could take final action tonight.
I guess the other question is why I didn't know about that application. Did other trustees know about it?
No,
We just got the letter from the attorney Friday.
I had heard applications had been put in. I was under the impression that nothing was able to move until we finalized
Figured it
this.
out.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I knew applications had been coming in. That's why we sort of started doing this law and put everybody off. I didn't realize there was any time frame. Trustee Davis?
Mr. President, you guys had just covered about distances from one store to the next. Could we, and this is for Attorney Elliott, can we have a restriction that places them so far away from schools, churches, parks, and residential homes? Can we have that added into?
At this point, I would say no. There's no documentation for the necessity to do that. You can go back and have the staff review it, possibly file another text amendment and have the appropriate public hearings on it. But at this point, putting in those types of restrictions without any public hearings or any review of it at Plan Commission or by the staff or anything is going to cause a problem supporting that ordinance if it's challenged.
So can we make a motion to throw it back down to the P&Z and have these types of things put in?
I'm recommending that you take some action now, and if you want to add additional stuff, you go back and do it later.
Essentially, we want to get it done because there's somebody who has an application that has already filed a complaint against the village, but they want to go into a C2. C2 would be St. Charles Road, would be Roosevelt Road, would be anywhere on North Avenue. My personal suggestion would be, since it didn't go into the PUDs, would be to take the action to put it, keep it only in M1s, take that vote on it now, get it accomplished, put it in the M1s for the second reading, do it in the M1s as well, let P&Z research and find as many different restrictions as possible that we can put on this and come back and add more restrictions to it as such. But as it stands now, to keep whoever our petitioner is who has filed against us for being allowed to go into the C2, I would suggest everybody vote right now to put it in the M1 and leave it in the M1. Worst case scenario, if this goes through, they will be in an M1 area, but at least they will not be in a C2 area. Would that be probably the best way to get it accomplished right now? At least then they're not in any C2 areas.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President?
Trustee Blankenship?
Just a real quick one. Do these businesses, like any other business, need a certificate of occupancy to go into the facility that they might be renting or purchasing?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, roll call vote to essentially keep all of text amendments the same. We will not be able to restrict amount in the areas per what Trustee Taglia brought up. What was that, section 3, Trustee Taglia?
Yeah, section
The first
3.
part of 20.
Yes, number 20, yes, sir.
All right, so we'll have to scratch most of that, and it'll only allowed into M1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This would basically go back to the original text amendment as submitted.
All right. Roll call vote, please. Oh, Shubra, hold on.
But you still want to keep the standards that they won't need to meet, right? But that's in section C also.
Yes, it actually, I'd like section C to go back to planning and zoning and see if there are any other anything we can get around that puts even more restrictions on it, whether it is in the M1, whatever. Put as many restrictions on it as possible. To that point, we could possibly, as Trustee Taglia mentioned, there's not a lot of, at the last meeting, there's not a lot of state statutes that cover these things as far as restrictions that can or cannot be placed on them. So we might as well be the, I guess, the bellwether and see how far we can go, putting restrictions on them. And, if it comes out that we're wrong, then we'll loosen up restrictions, but we might as well be as strict as possible and make it as difficult as possible to do business. And then they can come back to us and we can have a judge tell us you can't put that many restrictions on. That's about the best I can think of, correct? Any other thoughts?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia?
the Attorney Elliott mentioned that regulations on the hours of operation for a second-hand goods store could be considered to be a cash for gold store, if they could add that language also.
Well, that wouldn't be part of the zoning ordinance. That would just be part of the regular code of ordinances. We can draft something up for you on that.
Right.
Okay, let's get that accomplished as soon as possible as well. So we can restrict hours of usage. Okay, any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Hagel? I'm sorry. What is going on today here?
Yes.
Trustee Davis?
Reluctantly, yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
All right, we'll move on to item 9. Trustee Case will get you a ponytail before the next. First reading of an ordinance approving petition PZ-10-0009, text amendment to Appendix C, basic zoning ordinance relative to scrap metal recycling, Village of Villa Park petitioner. Can I have a motion for the first reading?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis,
make a motion for the first reading.
can I have a second, please? Trustee Case,
Second.
questions or comments from the board? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Item passes. Number 10, resolution approving amendment to amended employment agreement between the Village of Villa Park and Philip J. Page, extending final date to March 25th, 2011. Can I have a motion for the resolution?
Mr. President.
Yeah, item 11 stays. You know what? I know you got the law degree. Relax. Can I have a second on the resolution?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolthus.
second.
Questions or comments from the board?
President Cullerton?
Yes.
Who was the first? Who made the
Trustee
motion?
Taglia was the
Okay,
first.
thank you.
Questions or
Mr.
comments from the board?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship?
I would just like to say Manager Page has done a wonderful job in his position, and it's been a pleasure working with him.
We get him till the 25th. If we approve this tonight, I would have to concur with Trustee Blankenship. Manager Page has proved his worth to this village immensely, and I am very pleased that he's been part of this village so far, and I continue to hopefully keep him till the 25th. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Yes. Item 11, resolution authorizing extension of lease agreement with William Ladewig, property located at 257 to 277 East North Avenue. Can I have a motion to table item 11 till after the committee of the whole?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia,
move to table item 11.
can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bullwinkle,
I second the motion.
questions or comments from the board? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Yes. Item 12, unfinished business, none. Item 13, new business, none. Item 14, consider executive session, RE5 ILCS 120/2C1, personnel matters and collective bargaining. Can I have a motion to consider executive session?
Mr. Mr. President,
Trustee Boltes.
motion for executive session.
Could I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia.
second the motion.
Questions or comments? Roll call vote on executive session.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
Trustee Bolthus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Colleton?
Yes. All right, item 15, public participation on non-agenda items. So now would be the time, if you didn't have anything on this agenda, if you don't have anything on the committee of the whole, time would be to speak on a non-agenda item. All right, we will go to 16, reports and recommendations of elected officials and village manager. Trustee Bolthus,
Nothing like, Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia,
No report.
Trustee Case,
No report.
Attorney Elliott,
No report.
Trustee Davis.
Just one thing, the pedestrian crosswalk is closed at the train station. We now have to use Addison Road or to the east.
Ardmore Road,
Oh, Ardmore, I'm sorry.
not Addison, that's a long
That's where I
walk.
want the bridge, sorry.
It's a long walk.
You're right, it's a long walk.
It's a long
Or
walk
the
to park
east
in
end
that
of
lot
the,
and go all the way to Addison. Holy cow.
It's good people. Anyways,
Good exercise.
it's the two, Ardmore and the east end of the parking lot. So please do not attempt to cross where you, that's all, thank you.
Trustee Davis, I want to thank you. I heard you were out there on the first few days with the police and helping people in direct traffic and getting some feedback on that. So I thank you very much for being out there.
We'll be there tomorrow.
I appreciate it very much. Trustee Bullwinkle.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Number one, I just wanted to let residents know that now, if you don't have access to Comcast Channel 6 or AT&T Channel 99, you can watch the board meetings online through a website, www.vpnettv.com. And it's just a good alternative for residents who don't have access to cable right now. So those of you who are watching, you can let people know, kind of spread the word. Again, it's www.vpnettv.com. And I just wanted to give a special thanks to Al Stash, who is a volunteer on the Cable Commission. He's worked really hard behind the scenes to help make that happen, along with Patrick McAndrews, who kind of operates our board behind the scenes. So really appreciate their efforts on that. Second thing on my docket is I just wanted to give everybody a heads up to save the date that the 2011 Community Bike Ride will be held on Saturday, August 6th. It's our third annual already, and it'll start and end at the gazebo at the Prairie Path and Central Boulevard. And if anybody wants to, we've just kind of started our planning for this year's event. So if anybody wants to get involved or wants more information, they can contact me. My number is area code 630-834-5032, or they can contact Jenny Casale in VP Parks and Rec. Her number is 630-834-8525. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And does the Cable Commission still send the board meetings over to the library for people to check out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So there is one other place.
Yeah.
If you don't have the internet, you don't have cable, go to the library. All right, Trustee Blankenship.
No report tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Kornecki,
No reports tonight, thank you.
Manager Page.
Yes, just a couple of items. I have an updated budget schedule that I placed in front of you. This follows our discussion from our February 21st meeting when we had suggested the workshops on March 7th and March 21st be used for additional budget review, and the categories or activities are listed there. The concept is to get through those, and then on the 21st, review any open items, finalize all areas by March 28th, and then move it forward for public hearing in April, as traditionally, and of course by law, you need to pass your budget by the end of April. We propose a public hearing on April 11th, 2011, and then the final first reading on the budget that evening, and then a final action on April 25th. I have reviewed this with Vitas Giskelis, who's serving as acting finance director, as you know, and a public works director, as well as Shannon, the assistant finance director, and we're in agreement that this is a reasonable schedule. Obviously, we need to get through the workshops and then address questions and finalize by March 28th. And we think that's, having gotten through the corporate fund for the most part, we think we have are in a position to move these things forward. So I wanted to update everybody on that schedule and hope that you see this as a reasonable schedule in terms of moving this forward to approval in April.
I think it's fantastic. Anything else?
Just quickly, the Dunkin' Donuts redevelopment agreement has been drafted. We will be forwarding it to the developer for their review and comment, and then we'll be bringing that forward on March 14th, as well as the building, the update on the building code and building permit fees will be on March 14th also.
Thank you very much. All right, real quick, I want to thank, there were a couple of organizations who did big fundraisers. Lions Club had their pancake breakfast. Boy Scouts had a spaghetti dinner. You know what? There's just great things going on in Villa Park. Make sure you check out Chris Fox sitting in the back, the Villa Park Review, and the Villa Park Independent. There's always tons of opportunities here in town to be part of the community. There's always commissions available to apply for. I also, Manager Page, thank you on the budget workshop. And hopefully the board all received their packet from the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau. I've scheduled a presentation with them for the 28th of March during our Committee of the Whole session. Myself, Schumer Gavin, and Manager Page met with them. And already they've, without any commitment from us at all, they've actually sent us one lead already for a business or an opportunity for Villa Park to take advantage of. So,
Job.
hopefully everybody keeps looking at that, and I look forward to their presentation on the 28th. All right, and with that, we will move on to the Committee of the Whole. Pardon me, I'm going to blow my nose real quick. I'm absolutely stuffed up beyond belief.
You all right there?
Like I stepped out of touch, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
I'm absolutely stuffed up. Just can't shake this winter cold. All right, item 1, approve minutes of February 14th Committee of the Whole meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia.
I move to approve the minutes.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolthus.
second.
Questions or comments from the board on the minutes? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship?
Yes.
Trustee Bolthus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Yes. Item 2, consider an amendment to Section 3-313 of Chapter 3, alcoholic liquor, to increase the number of Class EEE liquor licenses. Mr. Page.
Yes, Mr. Emmanuel Artiega of Los Burritos Mexicanos, number 2, located at 118 West North Avenue in Villa Park, would like to complete the needs of his restaurant by adding alcohol to his menu, which should enhance sales and customer satisfaction. Mr. Artiega has completed the background check and has been approved for liquor license purposes. Approval of the ordinance would increase the number of Class EEE liquor licenses from 2 to 3. The total number of liquor licenses allowed in the Village of Villa Park would increase from 49 to 50.
All right, any questions? And Mr., is it Artiega? No, did I say it right? Okay. Is in the audience. Any questions or comment from you? No? All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
One question. A triple E, that is alcohol only served at tables? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship?
just to piggyback on that, is it all types of alcohol or beer and wine?
You know what?
Question mark.
You know, I'm not positive. I don't. Hold on.
This is liquor.
It's alcoholic liquors. So it would be beer, wine, and mixed drinks. I believe.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm pretty sure. But it also, if you look on the, as the Class EEE license authorized, it has to be part of food ordered, and it has to be less than 50% of the receipts for the restaurant as well. Any other questions or comments? I have a question real quick. Were you featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives? Was that you guys? No, there was somebody else on the strip. Okay. I wasn't positive. Somebody on North Avenue got that featured. I couldn't remember who it was. All right. Can I have a consensus to move this to the formal?
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Same answers in 5 years. No.
President Cullerton.
Yes. All right. Item 3, consider extension of lease agreement for property located at 257 to 277 East North Avenue. Bill Ladewig, Auto Cool. Manager Page.
The village acquired the property in December 2009 and through an agreement allowed the business owner to continue to operate at the location until March 2011. Since there is no imminent development project for this site at this time, the agreement can be extended for another year if mutually agreed upon. If approved, the business owner will continue to operate for another year and pay the real estate taxes on the property, utilities, and insurance.
Any questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President,
Trustee Davis?
curiously, the village owns the property. Does the village pay normal taxes, real estate taxes, as other people?
Not if it's exempt. If the village takes title to it and is not leased for private purposes, we could go for an exemption. But as long as it's being leased, it needs to property taxes need to be paid.
So it's not exempt from that?
No, not at this time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Glad Mr. Ladewig wants to stay there for a while. We might as well continue to have a business there that produces some revenue. All right, consensus to move this to the formal.
Trustee Bolfus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
President Cullerton.
Yes. Item 4, consider an ordinance amending Section 9-313A of Chapter 9, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Villa Park Municipal Code. Manager Page.
The village charges residents and non-residents a fee for emergency medical services provided. The fees collected help offset expenses incurred for providing advanced and basic life support emergency services to residents and visitors to Villa Park. An increase in the non-resident transport rate of 30% would result in an increase in net revenues of approximately $21,000 as compared to current rates. The new rate would be about the median between highest and lowest non-resident transport rates in the immediate area. Staff respectively request an amendment to Section 9-313A of Chapter 9, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Village Park Municipal Code, reflecting the following charges to the schedule of fees assessed to users of emergency medical transportation and related services according to the following chart. For advanced life support, the present rate is for residents is $500. The proposed non-resident rate would be $780. Basic life support resident $440. Proposed non-resident rate $650. Advanced life support 2, present resident rate $740. Proposed non-resident $960. For supplies, $48 for resident, $72 proposed for non-resident. Mileage $9 for non-resident, proposed $11. Non-treatment, non-transport for residents, no charge. For non-resident, a charge of $25. So that is the recommendation.
All right, any questions or comments from the public? And our fire chief is here in the back to answer any questions as well. Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President.
Trustee Davis.
All right, we brought this up a year ago for the ambulance. And these are the rates we really should have came up with back then. Will these increases be going towards paying off that ambulance, or how's this going to work now? Because remember, that's how we were paying for that new ambulance, was increasing the rates.
How the revenue is going to be allocated is kind of not up to me. I know that it will be an increase in the revenue. It will be no less than it was before. I know that we had raised the rates before to increase of about $30,000 a year. So with the general increase, that was about a year and a half ago, going in 2009, sometime in 2009. So where this revenue is specifically earmarked for, I don't think we've made that decision.
I would just add the intent is they would stay in the corporate fund. As you know, the budgets, the operating budgets for these programs are in the corporate fund and far exceed the revenues collected from the ambulance tax. So it's proposed to help meet the operating requirements. And, as you know, we have a 2% increase, for instance, in labor costs this year under the union contracts. And so it's to be applied towards increases in the operating costs of the fund.
Mr. President,
Trustee Bolthus?
if I understand this correctly, there's no increases for residents in this proposal. All the increase is just for non-residents fees. So just so the residents understand that we're not raising the rates for the residents. I had one resident ask me today, maybe you could answer this first, Director, for them. If we do an ambulance run for Elmhurst or Lombard, into Lombard, who does the billing for that? How does that work out with the billing?
Villa Park, and we would be billing for that at the non-resident rate. Anytime now we go mutual aid to another municipality, we would bill our non-resident rate to the patient that we transport in another municipality or another jurisdiction.
So we do the billing at our rate?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
At our non-resident rate, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. But then concurrently, they would probably do the same to us. If we had a mutual aid response and Elmhurst came in and utilized one of their ambulances for one of our people, they would be billing at a non-resident rate as well?
That's what I would assume, yes. I know they'd be doing the billing. I would assume that would be at their non-resident rate.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? And it seems like Addison, Elmhurst, and Lombard really have staggeringly high rates for non-resident. Just wondering if maybe we should go more. Considering Lombard is 1,100, Addison is 1,400, and Elmhurst is 1,350. I'm just looking at ALS too. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts. Seem to be a lot higher in those three communities right there. Brook Terrace seems to be pretty straight across the board, and York Center is pretty straight, but
Well, we're right about in the middle of all the other communities. Oak Brook Terrace, Oak Brook, York Center are all lower than we'll be. And I assume that the director did some evaluation what our costs were on this to come up with these figures. So.
all right.
Whatever
Wanted
the
to
board
see if
wants.
everybody wanted to think about it a little bit more. All right, consensus to move this to the formal.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Bolthus.
Yes.
President Cullerton.
Yes. All right, item 5, advance to bill listing, none. Item 6, reconvene to formal agenda. We'll go back to item number... Item number 11, resolution authorizing extension of lease agreement with William Ladewig, Reason property located at 257 to 277 East North Avenue. Can I have a motion for the resolution?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia.
move for the resolution.
Can I have a second, please?
Mr. President,
Trustee Blankenship.
second the motion for the resolution.
Questions or comments? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Blankenship.
Yes.
Trustee Bolthus.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Case.
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle.
Yes.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
President Cullerton.
Yes. All right, with that, we will go into executive session. We will not be coming out of executive session with any final decisions. At Villa Park, have a great week. March 1st tomorrow. We'll see you on the 7th for a budget meeting.